I'll do
Perfect.
it now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Marie. Okay, lovely. Um, I'm just briefly um I'm just sorry, my apologies. I'm just briefly going to switch on my camera just to wave to everyone to say hi. So good morning and thank you for joining me. So I'm Selene. I'm going to switch off my camera again just because to save some everyone's bandwidth. And now I'm quickly going to share my slides as soon as there we go. Cancel. Uh, good morning, Pepler. Lovely to see you. Let me just quickly. Something weird is happening now. Browse my computer. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry. Always takes a little bit of time to share the slides. Very quickly finding it. Oops. Clicked on the wrong one. And it's busy loading. Ah, there we go. Can everyone see the presentation? See the slides? Excellent. I see lots of thumbs up coming through. So just before we start, um, thank you very much for your and Bronwyn and Paulette. So just before we start, I absolutely do not mind being interrupted. If you have any questions or comments, you don't have to wait until the end. You're welcome to interrupt me and ask the question or make the comment. You can either use the chat box and type your question or comment there, or you can just raise your hand. And Sandy said she will help me keep an eye out so that I don't miss anything. So what we're going to focus on today is not so much the do's and don'ts, but more specifically practical strategies um, to structure your proposal, to get writing on it, and specifically looking at tiny texts. And I'd like to start with a quote from Knight, who said that, well, first of all, a thesis proposal is not that different from a marriage proposal. You make sincere promises, you sweat profusely, you hope the other party says yes, you get down on your knees and beg. Doing a marriage proposal is, in fact, good practice for a thesis proposal. And even though Knight's comment is tongue in the cheek, he does touch on some important elements of a proposal. It's you make sincere promises. So you're promising the department, the university, um, the your supervisor that you are going to do X, Y, and Z. But you also hope the other party says yes. So it's not just telling someone this is what I'm going to do. It's also a persuasive text in that you are trying to get the department and the supervisor to agree that you can go and do this research. And you sweat profusely. A proposal is not an easy document to write. And one of the reasons it's a difficult document is this proposal paradox. On the one hand, it's a form of pre-writing. So you're laying the groundwork for further study or further investigation. And you're trying to kind of sell the viability of your research. So it's a form of pre-writing. You're preparing for something. But at the same time, it is a finished product as well. It should read as an independent document. It has to be good enough to be accepted by the various committees. Um, and if you think about um, your research as a progress line, where you the start of the process is where you decide I'm going to do my master's or my doctorate, and the end of that process is where you get your degree. About not Don't think of it in terms of time, think of it in terms of the process. About 55 to 60% into that process is where you submit your proposal. So you basically do 60% of the work in 20% of the time, and then you do the other 40% of the work in the remaining 80% of the time. You have to show your readers that you have done enough research that they can, oops, I went too fast, that they can trust you to go out and do research. And the proposal helps that process line, it helps you to see whether your research is worthwhile. Does it have scientific merit to it? Do you employ relevant methods? And so that's why I say it's also persuasive text. You're trying to convince your reader that this is a worthwhile topic. You also want to see if it's feasible. It's perfectly normal to start out with a topic that's absolutely massive, because in your mind you're thinking, I have to fill 100 to 200 pages. So I need a big project. But you want to go into depth with this topic. So the proposal helps you to narrow down the parameters and see what is doable within the time that you have available. Is it doable? And that's what I mean with to see if you'll be able to do it. Obviously, I don't mean in terms of intellectual capacity. That's a given. But to see, do you have access to maybe all the equipment that you need? Access to a laboratory, maybe the lab where you're working, where you want to do your research, is very busy, so you'll have limited time to spend in the lab. Or you want to conduct interviews and you want to do it face to face. Where do your participants live? How far would you have to drive to get to them? Is it doable within the amount of time that you have? Is it doable in the amount of time that your participants have? So that's what I mean with to see if you will be able to do it. And then to convince your supervisor, the department, the university, that your project is worthwhile, feasible, and that you thought of all the different contingencies and barriers maybe and things that you will need access to. And the proposal becomes like a contract between you and your supervisor, where you promise, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and your supervisor promises to help you do X, Y, and Z. And there's three main questions that a proposal answers: what, why, and how. And oftentimes problems with a proposal arises because the writers only answer one or two of those questions. Oops, my apologies. I'm too I'm too clicky today. So a lot of proposals would describe a really interesting problem, but they don't tell us why this problem should be investigated, what makes it worthwhile, what gives it merit. And they don't tell us how it's going to be investigated. Or there's an excessive focus on the methods. How are you going to conduct your research? And your reader's not sure exactly what it is that you're investigating or why you're doing it. So you want to make sure that your entire proposal addresses those three main questions. And you consider these questions before even starting your proposal. So you can jot down notes for yourself about just what is the problem? Why should it be investigated? How will the problem be investigated? We're not going to do it in this session. I want us to do the next exercise. We'll do some nutshell writing. Now, nutshell writing is when you write, or we sometimes call it micro writing as well. You write small pieces of texts and you use those small pieces of text to flesh out the rest of your proposal or the rest of your whatever other text you're working on. And this practical exercise that I'm going to show you now is very useful either when you're starting out your proposal, so it helps you to just have something on paper that you can use as a basis from which you then develop other things. And I'll show you how you can use this practical exercise we're going to do now to flesh out the rest of the text. Oh, my apologies. You can also use this practical exercise when you're already into writing the proposal. So, Mr. Ndakola asked if we could kindly record the session. Mr. Ndakola, we are recording it. I just checked, and it is being recorded. Just getting back to the practical exercise, you can use this exercise as well when you're way into your proposal writing process, and it helps you to maintain focus, because sometimes when you start writing, things become so big and broad and confusing and messy and overwhelming. It helps to just bring you back to the primary focus of your text and your ideas. So this is what I'd like you to do. I want you to answer 3 questions, but in one sentence. And the reason I ask for it in one sentence is because that will force you to be very, very focused. You can't have a lot of explanation, a lot of unnecessary details. You only have to focus on the bare bones. And I'll give you the sentence prompts as well. So the first question I want you to answer is, what are you researching? And you can type, I am researching X. And then why is this topic important or relevant? So I'm researching X in order to learn, let's keep with just in order to learn how, or in order to learn why. So in order to, so that it doesn't become too big. So am I researching X in order to learn how X works? And the last question, what is your aim? So I'm researching X in order to learn how X works so that I can develop something. So I'm going to mute myself, and you can take a little bit of time. Oh, my apologies. And just write this sentence. What I'd like you to do when you finish writing the sentence on your side is to post it in the chat if you have access to the chat. So I'd like us to look at some of the sentences. So I'll give you, say, 3 minutes to write the sentence. I'll mute myself so that my background noise doesn't bother you. Wonderful. I see some, I see one sentence coming in. Let's give some more time just for a few more to come in. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I've looked through that, all look very interesting. So we have time to look at two of them. Quickly going to unshare or share a window. Um,
We've got all.
Sorry, I thought someone wanted to add something. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see. Just gonna, oops. I'm hoping you can all see the, can you all see the slides?
I can.
Excellent, thank you. So I randomly I took two of the first ones. Just tell me if you're not okay with us sharing your if we're not okay discussing your sentence. Dr. Mbapa, is it okay if we look at your sentence? I'm going to take the silence as yes. It's okay if we look at it. Okay, so let's give some feedback to Dr. Mbaba. Dr. Mbaba's sentence reads, I'm researching on antimicrobial resistance in order to learn how it affects clinical outcome in our hospital setting so that I can raise awareness on its testing and improve on antimicrobial stewardship. Wonderful. So any questions or comments for Dr. Mbaba? You can just unmute yourself or you can type. No question for Dr. Mbaba. or any comments? Do you like his sentence? Is there anything that can? Bronwyn asks, antimicrobial resistance of what? Oh, okay. So you'd like it to be more specific. Dr. Mbapa, and antimicrobial resistance of what are you researching? Not sure if you can hear me. Dr. Mbapa, if you're talking, just remember to unmute yourself. Someone also asked, what is clinical outcome? Okay, so making that more specific. Oh, Dr. Mbaba says they're unable to mute from their side. Would you like us to continue discussing it and you just type responses, or would that take a little bit too long? I think it might be too long. Okay, let's take another one. My apologies. But you can still give each other feedback in the comments. Let's just take this bottom one. And Rita
Sabina?
says, hi, yes,
Sabina,
Sandy.
Dr. Mbapa said there, I will type in the message.
Okay, it might take a little bit too long, so I would need someone who would be able to unmute. My apologies, Mr. Mbapa, but you people can still. I mean, they'll have access to the chat. And Rita, I'm just quickly looking for yours. Is yours in here? Ah, there we go. Very nice. Okay, let's quickly look at that. Copy and paste. Just change the font color. And I just want to add your name there. Okay. And Rita. Well, I'm assuming that's how it's actually spelled. Okay. So Anrita wrote, I'm researching. I can hear a bit of an echo. I'm not sure if someone's unmuted. Okay, it seems to be resolved. So Anrita says, I'm researching church-based premarital counseling in order to equip couples with relationship skills so that we avoid all forms of violence, eventual divorce, and build strong families. Very nice. So maybe I should first ask this. Anrita, is there anything in your sentence that you're concerned about? Anrita, are you able to unmute yourself?
Able to, but I use that. No.
Hi, yes, maybe you can just speak up a little bit.
There's nothing I'm concerned about.
Ah, okay, excellent. Thank you, Anrita. Alma asks, what denomination?
All that are giving premarital counseling.
Yes, at which denomination of the church?
Okay, we can do Catholic.
Roman Catholic. I'm researching, so we can add that Roman Catholic, church-based premarital counseling. Very nice. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Ah, okay. Dr. Taylor asks, or Nina Marie asks, what does it mean to build a strong family? I'm just going to make, and Rita, what does it mean to build?
Building a strong family is where We'll stick to our voice in health and
Okay. So avoid divorce. What did you say? Stick to?
our voice.
Sorry?
Sickness, so stick
Oh,
to
okay.
health.
To health and sickness. Okay. And I assume that you would that would be what did I want to say? I assume in the text you will explain what you mean with building a strong family. Any other questions or comments?
This is a small one. I think it is
Yes.
absolutely impossible to say we will avoid all of these
Mm,
things. So it might be better to say so that we can try and avoid or try and prevent as
okay.
much as possible.
Yes. Try to avoid. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it would be difficult. We try to make not make absolute statements in research because, well, we can't. We can try, but it's not a given that we'll be able to do that. But we can try to avoid it. We can, yeah, but we can't say in research absolutely that that is what we're going to do. Excellent.
I have a question, please.
Yes.
I was just wondering about the phrase all forms of violence. Is that not very broad? Are we, is she going to try to actually focus on violence in the family or domestic violence? It just seems a little bit vast, all forms of violence.
It does. Thank you, Mrs. VM. Yes, and Rita, are you going to focus on a specific form of violence?
Was that in the write-up, I would define what forms they are, but I was looking at emotional, physical, and any other. Okay, basically emotional and physical because those are the main ones.
And will it be domestic violence or child abuse?
Domestic.
Domestic violence. Okay. Domestic violence. Okay. Maybe to avoid, we can maybe say domestic violence, making it even more specific. Excellent. Any other questions or comments for Rita? Bronwyn, you said minimum. Oh, so that we can try to avoid. Oh, I like that word. Yes, so that we can try to minimize. Yes. Yes. Very nice. Because that softens it even more. It makes it less absolute. Very good. And Rita, are you happy with the feedback?
Yes, yes, I am very happy.
Excellent. Dr. Taylor says, oh, this might be a question from the ethics committee. Dr. Taylor asked, are you easily going to get people to disclose if there is domestic violence? And Rita, would you have strategies to get people to talk about it?
Yes. Okay, when I'm not doing my PhD in molecular biology, like we do, I do counseling. So what we do, we give couples questionnaires, but they will remain
Okay.
to express how they feel, share experiences without mentioning them.
Okay. So yeah, so they won't, it will be anonymous. So they'll feel more comfortable disclosing the violence. And then Alma added a nice different phrase that you can use instead of say eventual divorce, possible divorce. We can try to minimize possible divorce. Thank you for that, Alma. Excellent. Okay, I'm just quickly going to share this. Oops, now something happened. Okay, there we go. I'm just quickly going to share my screen in the normal way again. Let me just quickly get this back and share. Just want to save it the way it is now. And I'm quickly going to show you how we can use Anne Rita's sentence to create a title. And you'll see from the sentence that Anne Rita showed us, now we have the focus, which is on marriage counseling or premarital counseling in the Catholic Church. We see her motivation for it. She's trying to improve the relationship between couples. And we see that one of her aims is to help minimize violence, divorce. Oops, I clicked the wrong folder. My apologies. Just quickly sharing it again. Okay, it's very slowly. Oh, nice. Ms. Decina also says how to manage domestic violence. Yes. Yes, so it won't necessarily be, let's get to, just quickly want to find this slide. There we go. We don't necessarily want to, or we won't necessarily be able to try to minimize, but we can try to manage domestic violence. Very nice. Now, I quickly want to look at titles before we use Anne Rita's sentence to create its title. Sorry, I added some more of that. Just before we look at the title, this is just a basic structure for that most proposals would have. So each department that you're in would have their own template for writing a proposal, and it won't necessarily be in this order, and it might be called different things, but all proposals have these elements, regardless of what it's called or what order it's placed in. So all proposals will have a working title, and I'm going to show you just now how we can use Anne Rita's, I'm just keeping an eye on the time, how we can use Anne Rita's title to construct, her sentence to construct a working title. And then most proposals will start with an introduction where you give some background and context to your study and you bring in the why. So that bit where Anne Rita mentioned that she wants to equip couples with relationship skills, she'll bring that in a lot when she talks about the rationale, the motivation for the study. In some cases, it might not be called the introduction. It will be called background and rationale, or it will be called just background. And sometimes people don't start with the introduction. They start with the preliminary literature review, or they start with the research problem, and then give the background. So it depends on your department. A research problem, it can either be a problem statement or research questions, or both, depending on the type of study that you're doing. I'm not going to go into details with that, so I want us to get to the title. But and then the objectives. And in the sentence that you all wrote, so in Anne Rita's sentence, one of her main objectives would be an attempt to minimize domestic violence. So I think at the moment it's very broad, the aims or the objectives that she mentioned, minimizing domestic violence, minimizing possible divorce, building strong families. She might only one of those probably be the main aim, and then the rest can be objectives. So if you're able to minimize domestic violence, potentially that could minimize divorce, potentially that can help build strong families. So I'm focusing on the first one of that, and you can pick out from your own sentences what would be your main aim. I put hypotheses and propositions in brackets because not all research has hypotheses. That's a very specific type of research. But if we have time, we can look at how you can use hypotheses like a tiny text to help give direction to your research. And then the design methodology, you'll have a time frame of what you're going to do when, put brackets around budget, because not all research would have a budget. You can use your proposal definitely to apply for funding. And then you can also give, and then you give an outline of how you're going to structure your thesis, whether it's going to be chapters, articles, and your references. So just before we look at how we can change Anrita's sentence into a title, let's look at these titles. Let's only look at this first one, investigating. Let's look at the last one, because that's an interesting one. It says business counterintelligence, sustainable practice or passing fad. So what do you think about that title?
I think it's very good. It tells you exactly what the topic of the thesis is and also what the thesis is going to be investigating.
Absolutely, yes. It's very, and Rita says the slides aren't moving. And Rita, when that happens, what you could do is you can maybe quickly leave the meeting and then come back in, and then usually it will show properly on your side. So yes, I agree with Ms. Meyer. It's very specific. It's very focused. Alma says it's very catchy. Yes, and I like that about it. And I like, we usually don't have questions as titles, but in this case it works because it's showing us they're going to debate whether business counterintelligence is sustainable or not. So it's very catchy, it's very specific, very focused. So when you read a title, what are you looking for? What do you want to see in a title?
Definitely the first thing I'm looking for is what is the thesis about?
Yes, you want to see what? The topic. What else do you want to see? You want to check something. So we want to see the topic. What else do you want to see? Yes, Vuyu says, how broad is it? You want to see the specifics. You want to see the keywords to know what are the parameters. Very good. Bronwyn says it has to be understandable. Yes, your reader shouldn't finish reading the title, and I think understandability and the conciseness go hand in hand. Sometimes some titles can be quite long. So for example, I have a title here from Agri-Sciences, Etiology and Management of New Fabry Lenticell Decay, Bull's Eye Rot of Apples in the Western Cape of South Africa. So what's difficult sometimes in shortening titles, especially in Agri-Sciences, is you're expected to have the Latin name and the colloquial name, and that can lengthen the title quite a bit. But this one is still concise, even though it's longer than the other ones. Bronwyn also says the context. We want to see, even though we want to see the specifics, we want to see where does it fit in? What is the broader context? Oh, yes, Dr. Mbapa says, in some cases, we want to see the location or the population. So with business counterintelligence, it actually doesn't matter the location as much or the population. But in agri-sciences, that would be very important. So we have Western Cape of South Africa. We know, I want to say in quotation marks, the population would be, specific apples, a specific type of rot. So if your study is very dependent on the location population, you'll add that as part of the keywords. We also often want to see the action. What is it that you're going to do? So there could be various studies about business counterintelligence, but the action or the method could be the distinction between the different research projects. So one could be a debate about whether it's sustainable or not. Another one could be, a development of a business counterintelligence tool to help you refine counterintelligence, to spy on other companies more effectively, basically. Or it could, instead of adding a verb like developing something or comparing something or debating something, you could add the method, like it's a case study of doing this, or it is randomized trials, or it is a clinical trial, or it's a review of something. So the action helps make it more specific. See, we're running slightly out of time. I'm going to go back to Anrita's sentence, and we're going to see how we can how we can use her sentence to create a title. So Anrita, in your sentence, we'll first identify the keywords. So what would you say are the keywords? I'm going to underline it. What are the keywords in this sentence of yours? What are the most important words? And Rita, just remember to unmute yourself. I'm not sure. Oh, another user to control. Wait, I'm going to take back control. If that person doesn't mind. It happens often. So okay, I'm not sure if Anrita's having difficulty unmuting herself. Anyone can jump in. What do you think are the main keywords in Anrita's sentence?
I think premarital counseling is quite prominent.
Yes. Marital. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, there we go. Let's try that again. I don't have a very steady hand. Okay, that's kind of okay. Premarital counseling. Thank you, Mrs. VM. Anyone else? What other words are keywords?
I think relationship skills are also quite important.
Yes. And Alma also put that in, and Bronwyn in the chat, relationship skills. Let's try. There we go. Any other words that you would feel are keywords?
I think minimize domestic violence.
Yes, minimize domestic violence.
Or one of those three things.
Yes, or one of those three.
Yes.
Yeah, it won't be all three of them. We'll have to pick one. Yes. Ms. Mtomboti also says church-based. Yes, church is important. And then other people have said, yeah, other ones can be, I'm just going to highlight that, could also be, where is it? Divorce. I'm hoping that works. And strong families. But I think for the sake of the title, we'll pick only one. So that those could also be, but we'll have to stick to that. And then someone said Roman Catholic, because especially what denomination, then that will influence the study as well. Oh, thank you, Marie. Marie mentioned if the slides get stuck, it might help to exit the meeting and enter it again. Yes. So let's, I'm going to use the chat box. So can you all see the chat box? Is there anyone who can't see the chat box? That's actually not going to work. Let me. Okay, I'm going to move it slightly to the side. Okay, I'm going to keep this open. So we highlighted, I'm just going to quickly highlight that again. Roman Catholic Church. I'm just going to make it a different, make it a premarital counseling. Sorry about that. Dr. Taylor says, how do we how do we minimize domestic violence? Should there not be no domestic violence? Maybe the word shouldn't be minimize, but maybe to reduce the incidence. Reduce incidents, because yes, absolutely, we want there to be absolutely no domestic violence. But the problem is that with the research, we cannot completely get rid of domestic violence, sadly. So what we can do is equip couples, or what I'm now speaking for and Rita, but what we could do is to try and reduce the incidence of domestic violence. Hopefully. We don't want to make it too rigid. I just quickly want to copy this slide, duplicate the slide. Duplicate the slide. Okay, so what yeah, but that's definitely something that I think Anrita will have to look at in her study, is this issue of domestic violence. How to deal with that. So that's a good question, Dr. Taylor. Thank you for that. Okay, getting back to the sentence. Which of those, now Anrita might have different ideas about this, but because there might be some issues with her being able to unmute herself, what I'd like you to do is to tell me which of those keywords, Roman Catholic Church, premarital counseling, we're going to get to that just now, relationship skills, reduce the incidence of domestic violence. Which of those would you say is the most important keyword? Which one would you put first? And the reason I ask that is, in writing, whether it's a sentence or a paragraph or a title, doesn't matter. Whatever you write has a beginning, middle, and end. And whatever you want to emphasize, you place that close to the beginning, because then it stands out. So I'm not going to, we can go back to Vuyo and Desina's question and comment if there's time. So I just quickly want to show you how we can. Excellent. Bronwyn says premarital counseling is the most important. Counseling. So we have that, which would be the next. What keyword would you place after that? Don't worry about linking them yet. That's why I'm putting in little dots. Then we'll have reduce, Jeremiah. Thank you, Jeremiah. The incidence of domestic violence. Someone else said relationship skills. Domestic violence. Because there's two, oops. Who said relationship skills? I'm gonna put relationship skills here. Relationship skills. Reduce the incidence of domestic violence. And then someone said Roman Catholic church-based. It's not set in stone. We can move things around. Now we're going to fill in the these little dots. So how can we, oops, relationships, sorry, relationship skills, my apologies. What words would you use to connect premarital counseling and relationship skills with each other? Very nice, Bronwyn's very quick there. To build. Premarital counseling to build relationship skills. How would we connect that with reduce the incidence of domestic violence? Oh, I like that. Yes, we need our Dr. Taylor is on fire. We need kind of the action. So the impact of premarital counseling on relationship skills. Can do that on relationship skills in order to, very nice, we could Irene says, in order to reduce the incidence of domestic violence. Where would we put Roman Catholic Church based? Do we need it? Ah, very nice. We can put a colon and say the case or case studies or maybe surveys. It will depend on what type of study and Rita's doing on cases, surveys from the Roman Catholic Church. Very nice. I like that. And but we could, yes, Alma also said we can put it before premarital. We can say the impact of Roman Catholic church-based premarital counseling. Or we can say, yes, we can also, Mpasi says we can put it after the impact of premarital counseling in the Roman Catholic Church on relationship skills. Yes. So there's various places where we can place it. Very nice. Very nice. So hopefully Anrita can look at and this is a working title. So this isn't going to be set in stone. You'll still be fiddling with your title by the time you submit your thesis, but we have yeah, you now have a working title. You have something to work with, and it now helps you to search for literature because you've identified your keywords, you've identified what type of study you're going to do, you included the parameters. So that's the sentence helps you to create a working title for yourself. Oh, very nice. Jeremiah says he likes it at the end because having it at the end could assist in the study being used comparatively in other church group studies. Yes, yes. I also, purely from a writing standpoint, I like it at the end because otherwise it makes the beginning of the title very heavy in different types of nouns. So Roman Catholic Church-based premarital counseling. It's quite a mouthful. So, and it gives the specifics. It goes from broader to something very specific. It gives us the context, but it also gives us the specific place, basically, where it will be done. Very nice. We have like 2 minutes left. Any other questions or comments before I say goodbye to you? We didn't get through everything. I'll ask next year. I'm being cheeky now. I'll ask Santi next year if I can have a little bit of extra time. So before I say goodbye to you, I'm not going to switch back to the presentation mode. I'm just going to stay on these slides. Thank you, Alma. It's lovely seeing you again. Oh, and I think your studies, I saw your study. I'm going to send you a link to webinar that I think you would find useful. Sorry, I thought of that just now. Where you can get some more support with your writing is with the Writing Lab offers one-to-one consultations, and at these consultations thank you, Hermine. I didn't think of doing that. Thank you very much for sharing your sentence with us and Rita, and allowing us to discuss it and completely take over. But I hope you find something useful in it, and I really appreciate that. And I will share the slides with Santi so that she can distribute it to you. Yes, Santi.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but
Please.
if you would like to, we still have some minutes if you would like to continue.
How many minutes do we have?
How many minutes do you need?
Well, I was hoping I can show people how to use a hypothesis for nutshell writing.
Okay.
Can I have 5?
Yes, please
minutes?
do. Yes,
Wonderful. Okay.
We're okay with that. Oh, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, excellent. So I know not all research, I just quickly want to check. Yes, I know not all research is hypothesis driven. But when you're busy with your proposal, even if you're not working with hypotheses, it's sometimes useful if you get stuck to write a hypothesis for yourself, because that can help give direction in your writing. And the reason I say that is because it's a suggested preliminary answer. So usually when we're busy with, and I'm definitely going to share the entire slides. That's why I always share the slides afterwards so that I have it with everyone's contributions on it. The reason I say it can help give you direction is when you do your proposal, you have a beginning and an end point in mind. But sometimes while you're busy writing your proposal, doing your research, you start to feel a little bit lost. You're not sure where you're going with this. So if you write a hypothesis for yourself, you have your beginning point, but you also have an end point. You have an idea of what answer you would like to get. I just have to add a little caution there. Do not write your proposal as if you are going to get that answer, because then it won't be accepted by any of the committees, because the impression they get is that you're then going to be biased, that you're going to force your research into that direction and find that answer, not because that is the answer, but simply because you're looking for it. So this is just for yourself to imagine what your endpoint is going to be, because then it can help you figure out how to get there. So if you think about your proposal as a roadmap, it's going to be, I'm going to travel from Stellenbosch to Cape Town, but there's multiple routes to get there. And the proposal is then a detailed map of how you're going to get from Stellenbosch to Cape Town. The hypothesis would be the broad direction. I'm going to travel. You have your beginning and end points, Stellenbosch and Cape Town, and you're going to go via the N1, or you're going to go via the N2, or you're going to go via, I forgot what the roads are called. This is terrible. It starts with a K. I can't remember the road's name, or you're going to travel via that road. So what's nice about having a hypothesis that you just write for yourself is it gives you the beginning and end and gives you the direction you have to go. And so it helps you to write, again, your aim and objectives. What do you hope to achieve? Where do you hope to end up? But it helps you to write your methodology. What do I need to do to get to that end point? So you want to make sure that you still write even if it's just for yourself, that your hypothesis is written in such a way that it's not rigid. So what sometimes people do is they would have a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. So we'll state it both in the positive and the negative. For example, overfishing affects the stocks of cod. Overfishing does not affect the stocks of cod. But for or they can use an if-then formulation to make it more tentative. If I do this, then this could happen or might happen, to soften it a bit. You also want it to be very specific, even though it's a preliminary answer. You want it to be specific because that will help you find direction in your writing. So if we look at this hypothesis, what problems do you notice with this as a hypothesis? Overfishing affects the stocks of cod. What are the problems with this? Feel free to just unmute yourself and tell us what you think is the problem with this as a hypothesis.
Is it because it's stated as a fact?
Yes. Yes. Hermin's absolutely right. It's stated as a fact. So it's not tentative enough. Bronwyn says it does not say how. Yes, Dr. Mbapa says it doesn't say how it affects it. Does it increase or decrease? Yes, because sometimes fishing can stimulate the growth of a certain population. And we're left with a lot of assumptions here. We're assuming it's overfishing of the stocks of cod, but it could be overfishing of the predators that eat cod. So then the stocks of cod would increase. So it's not specific enough. It's very broad, while at the same time being very rigid. So we can rewrite it with an if-then formulation. If overfishing is causing a decline in the numbers of cod, then reducing the amount of trawlers will increase cod stocks. And what makes this useful, even if it's just for yourself, even if you're not doing research that is hypothesis driven, we can now see exactly what the writer is going to do. They are going to count the numbers of cod in a specific area. And they're not only specific about overfishing, but what type of overfishing. It's overfishing done by trawlers. It's not just random people fishing from the sideline with a fishing line or a fishing rod. It's specifically trawlers. So they're going to count the numbers of cod, they're going to count the number of trawlers, they're going to reduce the numbers of trawlers, and then they're going to recount the numbers of cod within a certain amount of time, and then see whether the numbers increased or decreased. So we now have the beginning and end points. We have a broad idea whether they are going broad idea of what they're going to do, and we have the dependent and independent variables. So it's specific, but the if then makes it less rigid. Just before getting to Vuyu's question, language is powerful, but it's not magic. So you can't just use the if then formulation and magically you're going to end up with a hypothesis. For example, if I play the lottery, then I will get rich. There's no logical connection or causal link between the two. So if then doesn't automatically create one, it just creates a problem with that last example. That's why I have it there. Were you asked to explain which research? So you'll know your research is hypothesis driven if here is that here is it. If you are doing research where in the literature that you've read, you've seen a lot of people suggest and say there is a possible causal link between certain things, but they haven't tested it. So they're speculating there is a causal link, but we don't know for sure. You have to go and test it before we can accept it as true. And that's usually how you then know you have hypothesis-driven research. In the literature, people are making connections, but it hasn't been tested yet. And it's that there is this causal element to the hypothesis. And it's only after we test it then we can accept it as a concrete answer. I had an interesting conversation with someone over the weekend where I religiously believe in what you call it, prebiotics. I believe that they work. And then this person told me, but actually, specifically with Reuterina, no one has ever actually went out and tested whether it's effective or not. People are just drinking it because they believe it helps. And of course, the research that went into creating this medication or pill, the research is solid, but they've actually never tested if it actually works. So hypothesis would be if people drink, if a certain group of people, if women drink Reuterina Fem on a regular basis, and I'll define what they mean with regular, it will improve their gut health. It's been our assumption that it does improve, but it's actually never been tested. So that would be hypothesis-driven research. And then they can have that if-then hypothesis, or they can say, if they drink Reuterina, there will be no effect. If they drink Reuterina, it will be harmful. If they drink Reuterina, it will have a positive effect. Does that answer your question, Vuyo?
Oh, yes, thank you.
It does. Okay, so it's only very specific types of research. But even then, if you don't have, even if you don't have hypothesis, it's nice to create one for yourself because it helps give you direction. I'm way over time, so I'm very quickly going to say goodbye. I'm going to say thank you first. Thank you so much for spending this hour with me. Here are the details of where you can, interesting questions coming through. Here are some details of where you can extra support with your writing. Mr. Chipembere asks, is there a rule of thumb on how long a master's proposal should be? There's no rule of thumb. It very, very much depends on your department. It's not even faculty specific. So some of the departments in education, for example, they say the proposal should only be 2 pages, which I think is excessively short. Most departments or most faculties at Stellenbosch University, it's anything from 2,000 to 4,000 words. I have seen other departments, other university, they want a preliminary literature review of 8,000 words, and they want a proposal of 8,000 words. So something a lot more substantive. It completely depends on your department, Mr. Chipembere. Some departments like sociology, they want you 2 pages of concept notes. And then after that, you have a full proposal of 4,000 words. Jeremiah says he's seen proposals of 45 pages. Yes, it absolutely completely depends on your department. It varies massively between one department to the next. Any other questions before we say goodbye? Wonderful. Okay, so I'm just briefly going to switch on my camera so that I can wave goodbye to all of you. Thank you so much for staying a little bit longer. It was lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for engaging. That always makes the sessions enjoyable and useful. I hope you all have a lovely week. Enjoy the rest of the library research week. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. And yeah, if I just see some of the chats here, very helpful, informative, and so on. So thank you for this session and yeah, for the presentation. And we really, really enjoyed it. And thank you for everybody that attended. And also just want to invite you to this afternoon's presentation by Elizabeth Moore-Willard on literature reviews. So just remind you, and that's happening at 2 o'clock. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.